Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of CCFR Radio on the Air. I'm your host, Rod Giltaca. Thanks for joining me again today on the show. We've got a lot of stuff to go through, a lot of big news. I'm going to have 2 pre-recorded conversations, 2 segments that we recorded in advance with Tracey Wilson because she's on a moose hunt as we speak. And they have a variety of tags for anything, so they can shoot almost anything that they encounter. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that also. The Amnesty for protecting gun owners against criminal liability for these newly prohibited firearms that were banned all the way from this past February back to 2020. The amnesty has been extended. So that's, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Liberals are in hot water again for promising to hire 2,000 more RCMP and CBSA personnel, which they haven't hired a single person. So the 6th public safety minister is being dragged across the coals as usual for that. I promised to give you the actual math behind the claim in the last episode that the government intends to rip off the overwhelming majority of gun owners that participate in this confiscation program. I have that for you coming right up in the following segment. And also a special thank you to someone who's done so much for the CCFR and rarely gets any credit. Anyway, all that and more, CCFR Radio starts right now.
CCFR Radio on the Air is brought to you by Wild TV Plus, the best hunting, fishing, and outdoor content available anywhere, anytime, on any device. Visit wildtvplus.ca.
All right, we are back now. I mentioned in the last episode, I want to tell you the math behind the claim that, the government intends to basically rip everybody off if everyone participated in this buyback. So the claim was basically everybody's going to get ripped off. The variables in this number, and you're going to have to hold these numbers in your head or some of these issues, is these numbers depend on everyone participating that owns a firearm that is now prohibited, that they participate in this buyback program, right? Go to the portal, put their information in, sit back and wait to find out if they're going to get paid. It also hinges on whether or not the retail buyback program that is almost complete comes out of the overall budget. We don't know that as well. Okay. And the other variable is how many of these guns that were previously non-restricted that are now prohibited are in circulation. And that number is subjective too, but I did my own little research project. If you remember in the last episode, we think there's over 2 million, well over 2 million. It could be as high as 3, but we don't know. So we're just going to go with 2 million. If it's a little bit less than 2, keep that in consideration. Here are the numbers, and they are round numbers. They gave us precise numbers, but I'm just rounding them. The government says that this program has a capped budget of $742 million. That includes all the admin costs, everything, possibly the retail program already, which is like, I don't know, $100 and something million has been spent, but we don't know that. We're going to keep it out to make this look better for the government. In fact, the government said they're going to pay roughly $1,800 per firearm on average. So when they said that, I said, well, how many, if you remember the meeting I was in, the technical briefing with public safety, I said, well, how many firearms are you guys buying? And they said 152,000. I said, that's completely insane. And you're not going to tell people whether they're going to get paid until they tell you what they have. If you remember, I called them diabolical, right? Because that's what it is. So they said, no, we're confident in that number. I'm like, okay. And I said, what about all the restricteds? And they're like, there's 126,000 of those. So they're getting those back because they're registered. So when they buy the restricteds, which is a small amount of the overall firearms in Canada when it comes to long guns, there's 152,000 in total. They're going to get 126,000 restricteds, and that leaves 26,000 firearms. 26,000 firearms that were previously non-restricted that are now prohibited. And if everyone did what the government wanted, 2 million firearms would get entered into that portal. That means the government, after they found out what everybody had, would pay for about 1.3% of them. That's the math. Okay, now, what they're trying to do is tell me this, so I tell you that you're probably going to get ripped off so that you don't actually participate and you hang on to those guns. Then they don't have to pay for them. They don't have to explain what would be a $5 billion program. Now it's only $742 million. That's chump change, apparently, right? I've borrowed money, by the way, because we're in deficit. But that's where those numbers come from. And I'll tell you this, they're moving forward with this buyback because they claim they keep their election promises. But they've been promising for 5.5 years that they would pay for these guns, that we wouldn't have to pay for their policy choices. And now they're intending to pay for almost nothing. So if this was really about public safety, they would say it's going to cost money, but everybody just turn these guns in. We got to get them out of our communities, like we said. If it was genuine, they would pay for them. But they're looking to pay for next to none of them. Just very interesting. Anyway, that's where the numbers come from. I don't mean to put the dark cloud on this conversation right off the bat, but it is what it is. So tell people about it. In the outro, if I have time, I'm going to tell you some of the things that you can actually do about this problem, okay? Anyway, when we come back, we'll start our conversations with Tracey Wilson. All right, we are back, and via the internet, we have Tracey Wilson of the CCFR. Wilson!
Wilson! That's your rock and roll voice. I love it.
Yeah.
How you doing?
The rock and roll voice I used to have. All right, we've got a ton of stuff to go through. We're going to have a little bit of fun, as mentioned. We're going to talk about our good friend, Gary Ananda-Sangri, who is the current Minister of Public Safety here in Canada. And he was involved in a bunch of controversy, as usual. And then we're going to go down a trip along memory lane of the 6, count them, 6 public safety ministers we've had in 11 years and some of our experiences with them. So let's talk about Gary and his latest failure.
Yeah, so this there's a lot that's happened, but recently Public Safety Committee was reconvened, and they had a couple of meetings. The title of the meetings were Responsibilities and Mandate of the Public Safety Minister, which is kind of funny because he doesn't actually know what his responsibilities or his mandate should be. He was tasked with hiring 1,000 new CBSA agents and 1,000 new RCMP officers. And of course, not a single one has been hired yet. So the Conservatives were grilling him in committee. And I watched this, and he just sort of sitting there like a big Humpty Dumpty. And he's like, well, I don't know. I don't do the hiring. It was like the Eeyore moment. No, of course, you're not actually doing the job interviews, Gary, but they both fall directly under your purview and you're responsible for hiring them. So that just set the stage for how it's going to be with this guy if every other buffoonery he's done hasn't. So
yeah, you're the boss over there, man. Like, by the way, in case no one explained that to you, you're the boss over there.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. I don't do any law enforcement.
What?
Okay, what? Nobody told me that. Okay, so it's been a total clown show with Gary, and he's not the first one. But if we run down the history of all the different people that have been put onto this portfolio, bearing in mind, by the way, that public safety has never been worse in the history of the country. Violence, including firearm-related violence, has gone through the roof, like historic highs during this whole clown show. But why don't you rattle off as quickly as we possibly can the 6 public safety ministers that you and I have had to deal with over the last 11 years?
Yeah, I actually think back to sleepy old Uncle Ralph Goodale. He was at the beginning, and I could almost miss that guy. He's been sent out to pasture now as the High Commissioner for Canada and the UK, but he was actually the last public safety minister that consulted with stakeholders. So kind of an elderly, semi-stately guy, very experienced politician. And then, of course, he lost his seat in 2019, and in came Bill Blair, former Toronto police chief. Bootstrap Billy is what I like to call him. And he, of course, was famous for the human atrocities he committed during the G20, which was dubbed the most massive compromise of civil liberties in Canadian history. We also made him famous in the 2019 election with our video when we stopped by and he got red-faced and lied straight to your face. He was followed by Marco Mendicino. This was the best. He claimed that the Long Gun Registry was responsible for the arrest of the Polytechnique shooter, the school shooter.
Who killed himself at the scene.
Yes, exactly. So this was one of Canada's darkest days, and he didn't even know the history. He attributed his arrest, which never happened, to the Long Gun Registry. He also trotted out 22 gauge Goody. I could go through that, but this is the one that tried to teach people about the FAC, something that hasn't existed for decades. She was actually followed up by David McGuinty, which was a little bit more serious of a voice. He was the son of former Ontario Premier Dalton McGuinty. He said some nasty things about conservative MPs from Alberta back in the day. He said they were shilling for the oil and gas industry. They don't belong in the national legislature, and they should just go back to Alberta, which is a really divisive thing to say. This was during the Harper era. He resigned the next day as natural resource critic. He's an environmental lawyer, absolutely no experience in public safety. And now he's the Minister of National Defense. He was replaced, of course, by Dominic LeBlanc, which is 100% the adult in the room. He's used to having high profile international type roles. He just had this added to the rest of his already existing portfolio. He didn't really add anything new to it. He testified a little bit in committee and made some commentary, but didn't really change anything. And then came Gary Anandasangri, and that's who we're stuck with now. And I can tell you, I've got little comments that I wrote here, notes about each one of them to make sure I stay on topic. And under Gary, I've got dense, Humpty Dumpty, half-wit, bumbling, cartoonish. He's literally fumbled the entire file since he's been on the scene. And it's almost like a comedy of errors. So
what a mess. What a mess.
Yep.
Yeah, well, just to throw a little bit of commentary, Ralph Goodale, he had a nice, really nice demeanor, a mild demeanor. So he was the one to carry forward, this really ugly agenda, right? He had that nice AM radio voice. And then, of course, you had Bill Blair, who's, I think, one of the most dangerous people I've ever been in a physical presence with, like dangerous individual. Yep. And then, of course, you had Marco Mendicino, just a complete moron. And, and I don't say that with any pleasure. He's just a moron. And so they tar and feather these guys and they toss them to the backbench because they know that people like Mendicino and Anandasangri have no future in politics. They're just going to get washed out anyway, right? So they just use them up and toss them in the trash after, right? But, and of course, Gary's been a disaster. I don't want LeBlanc or McGuinty to get away unscathed because those guys push this, which is really a disarmament agenda. They push this forward just as much as anybody else. They just didn't have a lot of time to do it. They were shuffled out, but it's been a really crazy cast of characters over the last 11 years. And I guess we'll see where it goes from here. But anyway, we are out of time for the segment. But when we come back, we have an announcement about the amnesty being extended. And also we're going to have a little bit of fun for a change. We're going to talk about the moose hunt that you're going to go on while everyone is actually watching this episode. So stick with us. All right, we are back, and we're going to talk about some news. Now, you and I had to record this like a week early because you're going on your moose hunt, which we're going to talk about in a second. But just today on October 15th, 2025, the Amnesty protecting gun owners from becoming criminals for unauthorized possession of a prohibited firearm. The amnesty that was protecting people from that charge has now been extended to October 30th, 2026.
That's right. So at the time of recording, all we've got so far is social media posts by Public Safety Canada. It's not official until it's gazetted. And I'm looking forward to that because I want to read what is actually involved. But I can confirm at this time that Public Safety Canada has announced they will be extending the amnesty period out to October 30th of 2026. So a full year out. And of course, that will mark the 6.5 year mark since they first started doing the gun bans back in May of 2020. Guns so dangerous that you're forced to keep them for 6.5 years through 4 amnesty extensions. Like, obviously, that's, these guns and the people who own them are not a public safety concern. Now, one other question that's been asked to me, which we may have the answer by the time this airs, is there was 2 different amnesties running, one that would expire in this October and one that would expire in March. Will those be combined? And I believe the answer is yes. I believe, we'll see when we read the Gazette, but I believe that all the amnesties are now combined into one, all of the firearms combined into one group, and the amnesty stretches out once again to October 30th of 2026.
So as you said, it's not official till it is printed in the Gazette. And so that's a document. I mean, nowadays it's virtual that comes out that basically chronicles all of the activities of the government and all official notices. And that document, if we're going to call it that, actually is part of the legislative process. So just so people
Yes.
know, you can always go and check it's called the Canada
The
Gazette.
Canada Gazette.
So
Yeah.
you can search it and you
Mhm.
can start reading that. And that tells you everything the government's actually doing. So important document.
Yeah. You can
Okay.
go down a real rabbit hole with it. I've done it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So here's some fun. We get to just talk about regular stuff for a minute. So you are
What?
going on a moose hunt with a group of women that have a kind of a nonprofit going on, and
Mhm.
you've got a variety of tags. So give us a quick synopsis of what's to come.
Yeah, I am so excited for this opportunity. There was a last minute cancellation out of this group and I snagged it up. I called you, made sure it was good to go, and I snagged it up. So, this is the Canadian Sports Women's Society, and this is a group of girls. They volunteer, and basically, what they do is they take women out for hunting, fishing, shooting experiences. They align very well with the CCFR women's program. And she had posted they got this 8-day hunt up in northern Ontario. It's about an hour and a half north of Timmins at the Yearwood Lake Lodge. And it's moose hunting, bear hunting, wolf hunting. We're going to be shooting grouse. We're going to be fishing. It's 8 girls who don't really know each other. Of course, we all know Lorianne Horst from the Canadian Sports Women's Society, and we love her dearly. But she's basically our leader, and she's taking us out on this expedition. It's like an adventure. We don't know each other, but we're all going to descend upon this place from across the province and just go out for the time of our life. And I haven't been out for a good hunt in probably 6 or 7 years. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm so grateful to get this opportunity and just to get out there and just shoot everything. That's kind of what we're looking for.
Well,
So,
yeah, you have tags for almost everything, right?
oh, yeah. Like I got a whole big stack of tags. So I'm really excited to, basically, if any creature in the forest moves, we're going to take it down. So
Legally.
that's where we're at. Yeah, legally, of course. So
Well,
yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And evenings at the lodge, having a dinner and, around the campfire. Like I'm just so excited for the whole experience. And I'm going to capture elements of that. And hopefully I can make it onto your other TV show. That's kind of my goal. So,
yeah, well, that's the idea. So, as you mentioned, you're going to take a few pieces of gear with you. You're going to capture the whole experience. Hopefully, you shoot a few things. Hopefully, a couple of wolves because they can, you can always shoot more of those.
oh,
Um,
yeah.
but you're going to be capturing this whole thing, and it's going to appear on an episode of season 2 of my hunting show, which is My Best Hunt
Yes.
on Wild TV. So
Mhm.
you will come in as a guest, like everyone did last season, and tell us the story of your best hunt. And I would imagine with all of these ladies, especially your previous experience with them on the goose hunt that you were on a while ago, that it will be if not your best hunt, one of your best.
The only hunting I've really done was like big game hunting, which is sort of a very solitude thing. You're very quiet, you're sneaking around. Goose hunting was like a party in the cornfield. They were dancing, filming TikTok videos. I never had so much fun in my life. So Lorianne puts on a good time, and I can only imagine what this is going to be like. So I hit the highway tomorrow up to beautiful, rugged Northern Ontario, and I can't wait to share it all with everybody. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I can't wait for you to get back and share some of the footage so I can see what it is that you guys shot and the mayhem that ensues after you actually shoot
8
something.
girls at the hunt camp. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I'm sure that everyone that's watching is wishing you a great hunt and good luck. And when you get back, we'll recount the whole experience. So until then, we appreciate the update, and we'll see you then.
All right. We'll see you then.
All right, we are back. And as usual, I only have like less than 3 minutes to tell you about something really important, really cool story. And it revolves around the CCFR Field Officer of the Month for September 2025, which is Reese Yearwood. Now, Reese is an exceptional individual who has volunteered for the CCFR for 10 years. He was there right from the beginning. And he was part of a handful of people that have been, what he did as a volunteer was to admin our Facebook group. If you're familiar with Facebook, it's unlike any other social media platform. Facebook makes you moderate and police the behavior of Facebook's users when they're in your group. it's infuriating. Like if someone acts up, does a bunch of bad things, violates the community guidelines or whatever in our group gets a strike, 3 strikes, they delete your group. We got 68,000 people in there. That group has been around for a decade. In fact, let me even tell you more. The CCFR was born on Facebook. The CCFR was born in that group. That was how we got to a certain point where the organization was able to take off to become what it is today, right? If you've heard me talk about the stuff that we've done, it's unprecedented as far as a gun group in Canada is concerned. We couldn't have done any of that if we couldn't have gotten off the ground. We couldn't have gotten off the ground if it weren't for people like Reese that tirelessly kept that group on the right side of Facebook's, whatever management, and kept it open. I can't tell you how valuable Reese's work has been. So 10 straight years he's been volunteering for us. So thank you, Reese, for everything that you've done. I'm not sure we would be here, certainly not in the capacity that we are without people like Reese. So anyway, and of course, for being Field Officer of the Month, you get a year's free subscription to Canadian Access to Firearms, the paper that is graciously donated every month by another fantastic individual, Donovan Dewis over at CATF. And you get a $100 promo code for the CCFR online store, and you get recognition on the CCFR radio podcast on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, all the rest of that stuff. And of course, here on the television show. So thank you again, Reese. Awesome individual. Now, last thing, I talked about strategies for advocacy to push back against the things that I talked about in the monologue. I'll have to put that on for the next episode because I'm out of time. But we have a lot of stuff, obviously, to continue to fight for. If you want to help the CCFR, you can become a member. You can just donate at the CCFR. You can volunteer at the CCFR. You can become a CCFR insider. You've heard me talk about that. You can put a $20 a month recurring donation. That gets you in an insider group. You get access to Tracey and I once a month. And all that stuff you can do at ccfr.ca. So we would be absolutely grateful for any help. That's it for now. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.